Alrighty, good morning folks, this is Jason with the Primal Outdoors channel, and today we're going to be doing some maintenance on my 4x4 Econoline van. I thought I'd take the opportunity here while I'm doing this though to talk to you guys a little bit about the build, get some of you up to speed on some of the things that's been done to this van in the past 5 years that I've had it converted to four-wheel drive. But also while we're doing some of this maintenance, I'm going to go over some problem areas that I have where I find myself having to replace parts often. All right guys, so I want to give you guys just a quick Cliff Notes version of everything that's been done to the van, because I realize some people will be coming to this video for the first time and they won't know the history. So I bought this van in 2019 as a used cargo van. It's a 1994, has the 5.8 liter V8 engine in, and it did have an E4OD 4-speed transmission in it. I took it to AJ's 4x4 Vans where they did the initial 4x4 conversion using mostly stock Ford parts out of an F-250, 350, 2005 to 2016, kind of that year range is where they pull parts for these conversions. The axle is actually out of a 2008 and it's a Dana 60, and the rear axle is actually out of a 2005 and it is the Sterling 10 bolt. I wasn't completely happy with the way the van handled. It was a little bit wandering on the highway, and so I took it to a buddy of mine out of Bend, Aaron Dixon, and he did some changes. He replaced the stock Ford radius arms with some custom radius arms that gave me a better caster, and that helped the van track a little bit better down the road. He also did a custom track bar and custom track bar mounts in order to get the van to quit bump steering. So now it handles much better and it's much nicer to drive on the highway. The tires and wheels are, I've got Les Schwab Open Range Pluses. I've had various different tires on the vehicle since I've done the conversion. So far, I like the Open Range Pluses the best overall as far as performance and length of wear. I have Method 17-inch Method bead grip wheels. I like those because I can air way down. I don't have to worry so much about the tires coming off the bead. I have Fox 2.0 reservoir shocks on here that I have added after the conversions, and then I also took the van down to Alcan Springs where I had custom rear leaf springs made for the rear axle. That pretty much covers the 4x4 and the undercarriage for the most part. We'll get to a couple other things here in a minute. The outside of the van has been coated in Line-X by Line-X The Coast out of Seaside, Oregon. And then I had a high top installed by Wasatch Overland in Utah. I then myself installed a 6-speed transmission. I took the E4OD out and then I put a 6-speed 6R80 from a 2011 F-150 and mated it to the 5.8 liter gas motor. I had to put a different computer, which I got that from US Shift. I also took the Ford computer out that runs the engine and ran basically everything before completely out, and I replaced that with a Terminator X and then programmed that to run the engine. That was a great upgrade. Going from a 4-speed to a 6-speed was an amazing upgrade. It also gave me the ability to manually shift all 6 gears, which was something I didn't have previously with the 4-speed. One challenge I had with the 4-speed is when I would go into low range, the old computer didn't know how to handle that and it would shift really weird. So you really only had the options of column shifting first and second gear, and that was very limiting on the trail. Now that I've got the 6-speed in there and I have push button shifting, I can now put in low range and I can manually shift all 6 gears, which gives me a lot more flexibility on the trail. On top of that, when I put the 6-speed in, I also put a Atlas twin stick transfer case, new custom drive lines from Tom's Off-Road, and I think for the most part, that gets us up to speed with this van. So the last couple of things I want to mention about the van build is the current rear bumper I have on here, I built myself. It was designed that I wanted, so I built it right here at my shop. And then the roof rack that I have over my Toughport high top was built by Aaron Dixon. Again, he did a lot of great work on the van. If you guys are interested in contacting him to be able to do some stuff to your van, I'll leave all his contact details down below. All right guys, so we're gonna talk about some of the work we're gonna be doing today. Now, one of the things I'm gonna be doing is replacing my complete front brakes. I've been using the Robusto ceramic coated slotted rotors for the 5 years that I've had the van, and I can't be happier with them. They're really good, but they are starting to wear now. So I'm going to go ahead and replace those, but I'm going to replace them with exactly the same rotors. We'll also be replacing the calipers and the brake pads as well, since we're already in there. Now, one thing I wasn't really planning on replacing was my front wheel bearings. I've actually had to replace these front wheel bearings. I think this is my 4th set that I've had to put into this van since I've owned it. I'm pretty sure it has to do with all the river fording that I do in the van, that the water just gets in there or does something to them and causes them to go bad extra fast. But like I said, this will probably be I'm pretty honestly sure that this is my 4th set that I put in the 5 years I've owned the van. And anybody who's replaced these Ford wheel bearings know that they're not really cheap because they're a full assembly. These cost me $550 a piece, so that's $1,100 for the 2. I might have been able to find a better price for them online, but unfortunately, I needed them today, so I bought them here locally. The ones I'm going to be putting in are SDK, I believe it is. I think that's the acronym. They're supposed to be really good. We'll put them in. Hopefully they'll last. All right, so another component I've had to replace on this van more times than I care to mention is my upper and lower ball joints. They have been replaced, I think, around 3 times. I'm on my 3rd set. Now, luckily, when I had my tires rotated yesterday, we did check and they're good right now, so I don't have to mess with them today, and I'm very happy about that. They're a real pain in the butt to replace, and I'm glad I'm not doing that today. But again, because of all the off-road that I do and how heavy this van is, it typically runs about 9,500 pounds with my build, water, food, supplies, everything in it. So that's a lot of weight on this suspension, and I think that's why I wear through them so much. Again, these are just the stock ball joints that come on a standard F250, 350 axle, and I just don't think they're meant to be torqued as much as we do when we're off-road with these vehicles. This is another reason why when people are always pushing me to go to one of the big boy diesels, I'm very resistant to that idea, because it would add another 500 pounds of weight to the front end, making it to where I would just blow through these ball joints even more, and other suspension components would just wear on them even more. So I'm really, again, happy to stick with my gas motor that is much lighter than a heavy diesel. I know the diesel would be great in the way of power, and if I was using this van for more like long distance travel or towing or something like that, where I wasn't really planning on getting into remote rough country, then I think the diesel would be a great option. But again, I think I'll stick with the gas motor for now, just to try to save a little bit of money on front end parts. All right, guys, I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on how to do the brakes on my 4x4 van, because it's going to be somewhat dependent on who did your conversion and what axle they chose to use. Again, on my conversion, we used a 2008 F250 350 Dana 60, which would be the same as the 2005 all the way through 2016. They're going to be pretty much exactly the same. So if that's what they use, just look up a video on an F250 in that year range, and you'll be able to see how to do the brakes. All right, so just like everything, nothing goes as planned. So my four-wheel drive selector hub is frozen in here, and trying to get it out, it broke, and the plastic pieces have broke, so now I'm gonna have to replace this. This will be the second time I've replaced this one, and I made the mistake. This is an aftermarket one, and it's always felt a little chintzy compared to the stock Ford. If I can find locally, I might see if I can replace this with just some Warren hubs. That would be better, but yeah, another unexpected expense. Finally. So if this job hasn't seemed fun and exciting already to you, this is my favorite part, is getting the E-clip that's in here out, and it is a pain. I have never been able to just make this happen super easy. I've tried a variety of different clips to try to get this thing out, and these ones seem to work the best, but they're just a hair short. This little nub here hits on the axle piece, and they're just a little bit short. If they would just be a little longer, they'd be perfect. Every time I do this, I think to myself, I'm gonna look online and see if I can find a better set that will work better for this job. And here I am with the same ones because I didn't do it. Woo! Success! Here it is in all its glory. Hopefully that's focusing on that, but that is the snap ring, and it is a pain in the butt. Bad wheel bearing out. All right, so here's our new wheel bearing. All new assembly. Now, something you may notice on this new one is there is a wire here. This is for your speed sensor if you have a newer van. My van's too old for this, so I end up having to just cut it right here at the sensor because it just doesn't do anything on my van. So one thing I should point out is your new wheel bearing will also come with new studs. You'll have to put those in, but it doesn't look like it came with new nuts, so you need to scavenge the ones that you had. These should just hand tighten in. Rubber mallet time. Rubber mallet time. All right, so I'm just gonna put the nuts on. I should be able to get it to seat the rest of the way just by sucking in the nuts. Just want to be careful you don't mess up that O-ring that you put on. All right, so the bearing's on. And one other little note that I was going to, well, the bearing's not on because I still got to put the C-clip on, and that's still not going to be any easier than it was to get off. But one thing I wanted to note why I had it apart is I see the last ball joints I put in here were Moog ball joints, which so far I have to say they're lasting the longest of any of the ones that I've tried prior. So anyways, if you're having problems with your ball joints, you might try the Moogs and see if you have some better luck. All right. We're gonna put the C-clip in. We'll see you in an hour. So before you start fighting the clip, make sure your U-joint's shoved all the way in, or else you're not going to be able to get it on the groove. Where did my... There they are. All right, that went a lot smoother than I thought it was going to, so we're good to go there. So we're now ready to put the new brakes on. The easy part. The last easy part. All right, so I've got my new brake calipers out. You can see they're all nice and black and pretty looking, but they still are remanufactured. I did get them from, they are Motorcraft, but you can see that it says that they are remanufactured. It's pretty much the norm for this type of stuff, is that it's just all rebuilt stuff. But hopefully, since it is Motorcraft, and that it will be a good part. So this is always the part that I kind of hate, because I never can figure out how these clips are supposed to go. Never makes sense to me. This is why I like to get my brakes, my calipers a lot of times from Les Schwab, because they already come loaded with the brakes. So all you have to do is just slide them on. Makes life super easy. Caliper on. Boom, boom, boom. All right, caliper on. That was the easy part of that. So now we get to do the messy part, which is move the brake line over. Okay. Try to do this as painless as possible. Old caliper. Figure out, is that going to fit? That's going to fit. How nice is that? Probably not showing this really well. That's probably, again, you guys can go watch a video on this. Because this is just F250 stuff here. Regular, good old F250 things going on right here. So we're losing brake oil, so you know what I get to do later? Is bleed these brakes by myself. Which if you've never done that before, that's super easy. Not at all. So we're taking the old bolt out, replacing it with our new bolt, and our new washer. New bolt, new washers. Trying to get things to line up. Hopefully they do. Sometimes they don't, which is exactly what is happening here right now. Is this has a little ledge here, and that is not lining up for whatever reason. That's awesome, so awesome. Yeah, you know, it's off. So, I don't know why that is. I don't know if that's because this brake line is actually off of my 94. I mean, obviously it worked on this other one. Does it look like anybody doctored this one? That's quite a bit too. It's like almost an 1/16 of an inch or more that it's off. So the question is, what do we grind off? Do we grind the brake caliper? My vote is we're going to grind on the brake caliper. I'm going to take the old bolt and just put it in there just to make sure nothing gets into that. Shoot, this is a pain. All right. Well, a little modification, and we're good to go. Lost more brake oil than I liked. There we go. Whew. All right, so that's this side done. I need to do the other side. I'm not going to take you guys along on that one because it's pretty much just like this side, just on that side. So we'll get that all done, and then I got to bleed the brakes, kind of show you how I do that by myself once we get to that point. Alrighty folks, well, we're all set and done. I've already gotten the other side done, and I've already gone through and bled the brakes. So how I do that by myself is just like you typically do. I start the vehicle and I pump the brakes a bunch of times, and then I go and make sure that my reservoir is completely topped off, and then I pump it a bunch more times, and then I check the reservoir again, and when I'm sure that I've got plenty of oil in the reservoir, I pump the brakes again, and then I use a stick that I've cut to the perfect length to where I can jam it down onto the brake, shove the brake all the way down to the floor, and then jam this up against the seat to hold the brake down. And then I go around and open the bleeders and let any air out, and then again I repeat the process by coming back into the vehicle, pumping the brakes a bunch of times, jam this down, hold it, go bleed the brakes, and do that, you know, 3 or 4 times until I'm completely convinced that all of the air is out of the system. Definitely not as convenient as if you had a second person who could just be in there pumping the brakes for you while you went around and opened the bleeders, or vice versa, but it's a great way to get it done when you're by yourself. Anyways folks, that kind of wraps up the maintenance I had planned for today. I got everything done that I needed to, and all the repairs that needed to get done. It's not always fun and games having a 4x4 van, but in the end, this van has enabled me to get to locations and do things I know I never would have been able to do in a 2-wheel drive van. So it's all worth it for me. Anyhow, if you guys did enjoy this video and you would like to see more content like this, please do give the video a like. And if you have any comments or questions, leave those down below. I'm going to head out and start putting some wear on these new parts. So we'll see you guys again outside.